How's it going, guys? Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to the audio section of your neuroplasticity section of this program. Now, right here, we're going to talk about neuromuscular control and proprioception. So, why does balance training even matter? Imagine standing on one leg. At first, you might wobble, flail your arms trying to keep your balance, right? Because you're struggling to stay upright. But over time, with practice, you become steadier. Your body reacts faster, and you don't have to think as hard about it, right? You don't have to think as much about balancing and performing this action. Now, what is happening here isn't just muscle adaptation, it's neuroplasticity in action. Now, balance training goes well beyond just strengthening the muscles, okay? It reshapes neural pathways, improving motor control, coordination, and reaction times. And this is because balance relies on a multi-system integration, right? And it involves the vestibular, which is the inner ear, and then you have your somatosensory system, which is body awareness, and then you have your visual systems. Now, training these systems together enhances your ability to adapt to different movements and environments, leading to lifelong benefits for both your brain and your mind. Oh, that's the same thing. I'm sorry, both your brain and your body. Now, neuroplasticity and balance training is when you have neuroplasticity, just understand neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to change and adapt in response to new challenges. Okay. So, balance training strengthens the brain's ability to process movement and quickly adjust posture and react to the environmental shifts. Now, this occurs because, or occurs through, I should say, through two key mechanisms. Okay. You have your structural plasticity, which is the physical structure of the brain. It changes and increases in gray matter density, and this is responsible for your motor control and coordination. Now you have functional plasticity. This is when the brain reorganizes itself by creating new pathways that allow for alternative routes for movement and stability if one pathway is compromised. So when you train balance, you're training the nervous system and the sensory organs to work in sync. So I want to break this down into some further key components. Your balance systems. How does your body know where it is? Okay, we have your inner ear function, which is the vestibular system. Now, this system, this functioning, acts as your body's internal gyroscope, okay, detecting hip position, movement, spatial orientation. If you've ever felt dizzy after spinning, that's your vestibular system calibrating. And how we'll touch on the visual, seeing your stability, okay? I'll give you a real life example very shortly. Okay, so key component number two, the somatosensory system, body awareness. There are specialized receptors in the muscles, tendons, and joints that provide constant feedback to the brain about the limb position and the movement of limbs. Now, proprioceptors help to fine tune micro adjustments in order to maintain stability. Now, to move into seeing your stability, just how I talked about a couple seconds ago, you have your visual system. Now, your eyes provide crucial spatial information. When your vision is removed, let's say when you're balancing with your eyes closed, the brain has to learn to rely on the vestibular and the somatosensory input in order to enhance adaptability. Okay. Now, the motor systems. Your motor systems are your brain's command center for movement. Now, throughout this program, I say the brain's command center for this, for that, but the brain really is the command center. I want you guys to think about this. I'm kind of diverting from what I'm supposed to be talking about, but think about your body. Your head is where your head is, and your brain is in your head. But you stand upright, right? So when we fall, we put our hands out, we try to catch ourselves because subconsciously we don't want to hit our head. We want to always protect our head. Why? Because the brain is truly the command center. I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were saying how when you hold your breath, right, for a certain amount of time, your heart doesn't stop. Nothing really stops. You're still aware. But if your breath is if you're not breathing for long enough, what happens? You lose consciousness. You lose consciousness. You need oxygen to the brain, right? So that's why I like to say the brain is the command center, because the brain truly is the command center. Now, to keep going, the motor system, you have your cerebellum, which fine tunes movement, corrects posture, and improves coordination. Now you have your motor cortex, controls voluntary movement and reinforces neuroplastic adaptations. Now, lastly, you have your basal ganglia, which automates movements over time, making balance second nature. So think about someone who's been playing sports for their entire life. There's certain movements that are just you don't even think about, that someone has to really think about in order to do. Now, by engaging in balance training, you're reinforcing neural circuits responsible for postural control, coordination, excuse me, and you're making balance skills more automatic and reaction times faster. Now, there are plenty of neuroscientific benefits of balance training, and I want you to understand balance training isn't just about avoiding falls, right? When you interact with balance training, you're actively enhancing cognitive function and you're slowing down age-related decline. Now, research has shown that when you work in this manner, you strengthen the synaptic connections. Now, repetition reinforces neural pathways, which improve motor efficiency. Not to mention, you have your sensory re-weighting, which is when the brain adjusts how it prioritizes sensory input, which also enhances adaptability. Now, we touched on the changes in your brain structure, right? Increase the gray matter volume and enhance the white matter integrity, improve the movement control and coordination. Now, this is important because as we get older and we age, we have a cognitive decline. Now, we want to prevent this. How I talked about when you fall, right? Yes, if you fall, you may break a leg, you may break an ankle, you may hurt a hip. But when you fall, if you don't have the senses to readjust, right, to shoot your hands out to possibly catch yourself from falling, and you hit your head on the side of the sidewalk, now what? Right? So this balance training and prevention fall training might not seem like a big deal now, especially if you're in the younger ages. But as we get older, if we can build up these skills now while we're still able-bodied, we're basically building a storage bank for when we get older. Right? We're building up a storage of neurons and brain receptors, right, for when we get older. So the vestibular system, it declines. Decreased inner ear sensitivity impacts the spatial awareness. Then you have proprioceptive loss. Weakened joint position awareness reduces stability. And then obviously the cognitive slowing, it slows down. So reduced reaction times make balance corrections less effective. Okay? So balance training helps to counteract these effects by improving working memory, problem solving, and multitasking abilities. Exercises that combine balance with cognitive challenges like balancing, let's say, while counting backward, strengthen neural connections, networks, whatever you want to call it. It enhances the overall resilience. Now, I think I didn't touch on the visual seeing your stability, right? When I was in elementary school, we used to have these gymnastics curriculums in gym. And every time we would do a flip or a car or whatever, we used to have to look at a spot on the wall, and this would kind of bring our mind back from being dizzy. Okay. So I just wanted to touch on that before I got too ahead of myself. So we're going to wrap this up, right? To conclude this section, train your balance, train your mind. Train your balance, train your brain, your mind, whatever you want to call it. Your brain thrives on challenge. Your brain thrives on challenge. Spaced repetition is one of the best ways to memorize whatever you're trying to memorize. And the reason that spaced repetition works is because instead of cramming information into a single sitting, you're giving your brain a chance to reinforce knowledge before it is forgotten completely. Okay, by incorporating balance into your routine, you're not just improving physical stability, you're actively reshaping your brain and reinforcing neural pathways and keeping both your mind and body sharp for life. Okay, so let's begin with implementing these neuroplasticity exercises and just excelling.